On. Closer? I can do it. Okay. So I am Nayaswami Parvati, and Pranaba and I, Nayaswami Pranaba, we live at Ananda village. We've been there for decades, not only at Ananda village, but we've lived all over America. We've lived in Europe several times at our center there, always with Ananda. I'm talking about all the Ananda centers, and we've had the great blessing of living a long life with Ananda and being able to serve in many different ways and many different locations. And we actually were in Gurgaon, but not at this center, in 2004 and in 2005. We were living in Portland, Oregon, and we had been the directors, spiritual directors of this center, Ananda Center there, for 6 years. And right at the end of 2003, we were leaving, and the group there gave us the incredible gift of a pilgrimage to India. And so it was our first time coming to India at that time, and we came in January of 2004, January, February, in those months. And so we saw masters' shrines and all of that. We went to Puri and Kolkata and Varanasi, and then we came to Delhi, and everyone had been here about 3 months. And so we very briefly were able to see Swami Kriyananda at that time for maybe an hour and a half, and then on we went. And we hadn't seen him in a long time when we arrived here, so that was a little brief. And after that, myself and Seva, my good friend, Nayaswami Seva, we came back in the fall, again to Gurgaon, B10/8, Guru Kripa, and I spent a couple of weeks here just to be with Swami. It was a needed thing. And then Pranaba, Nayaswami Pranaba, and I returned again in 2005, and we again spent time mainly in Gurgaon at B10/8 and Guru Kripa. We arrived right in November and early December when Swami Kriyananda was writing and finished writing the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So it was an incredibly blessed time for us. We just planned the trip, and then he started writing and all of that. So anyway, it was a wonderful time, and we just felt very blessed. But that was the last time that we were able to come to India. So here we are again in Gurgaon and with all of you, and it's a great blessing for us to be with all of you. The topic of karma and reincarnation is always a popular one, and it really gives us the framework for our whole spiritual life. And anyone who is interested in growing spiritually wants to come to a deeper understanding of both of those concepts, karma as well as reincarnation. And I would have to say that all of us here today have incredible karma. As Master said, very, very, very good karma, even to want to know God. And also reincarnation. We've come at a time when we were meditating in the other room, looking at the pictures of the gurus, both the big ones and the ones on the altar, 5 avatars. And we have come at a time when they sent their blessings, each one, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashai, Sri Yukteswar, and then Yogananda. And they each sent their blessings and their power, their grace, to see us through a very incredible time. We are in a time of great upheaval and turmoil and change and everything. And the power of the gurus is there because we all chose to come at this time. You know, it's important that we really understand the concepts of karma and reincarnation. And generally speaking, people don't want to really understand those until they're serious about their spiritual life, because they really, people will, in America, I don't know about here in India, but the topic of reincarnation, people make fun of it in a certain way. Oh, well, I don't want to know about that. Maybe I'll come back as a bird or a lizard or something like that. And I just think, you know, when you're ready, when you're serious, then you'll want to know how it actually works. And I'm reminded, I don't know if you ever saw this movie in India called Groundhog Day. Did anyone ever see that movie? It was a very unique movie, and when I first heard about it, I didn't really want to see it. I thought that would be a very boring movie. And it's about a man it's about reincarnation and karma, and it's about a man, with Bill Murray, the actor, it's about a man who has the experience of waking up one day, going through an entire day, making some big mistakes, as he did, and then the next morning, he wakes up, and it's the same day again, and he has to go through the entire day again. And at first, he doesn't understand that it's the same day again. And so this happens many, many times. And into about the third or fourth time, he starts to realize that he needs to do it right. Dharmically, in other words, he needs to make the actions right, to do things so that it's harmonious, it's cooperative, it's working with, as we would say, the divine grace. And so he goes through many, many repetitions of this lifetime, or this one day, actually, and finally is understanding how to do it in a better and better way. But I was also thinking about the poem God, 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 where from the depths of slumber, as I ascend the spiral stairway of wakefulness, I will whisper, God, 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 written by Yogananda. But that describes how it works, how reincarnation and karma works. It's a spiral stairway of wakefulness. And as we move up that stairway through increasing wakefulness of consciousness, awareness, then we start to become more aware of what's actually going on here. People say, what is the meaning of life? That's the big question. And nobody knows the answer to that. Oh, yes, they do, actually. Our gurus know the answer to that. And we start to, as we engage spiritually, we start to know the answer to that as well. Because we come back, you know, people have a great fear of death. And in one way you could look at it is, we've done it 1,000,000 times. Why be afraid? It's a very familiar thing in certain ways, but we're allowed to forget that. So, but at any rate, that spiral stairway of wakefulness is how we begin to come into an understanding of who we are, and eventually as a soul and as a superconscious being, one that is connected to the divine, and that is our true home. And so as that process happens, we come back, and again, I love the image of the spiral, because it's how karma works as well. Because we travel around and we have a life, we're born and we live a life, and then we die, and then we have a break, and then we come back again. But each time we come back, we're drawn back by our karma to a particular time, a particular place, a particular setting, to our parents, to our friends, all of that. And so it's something where we come back to that, and we are presented the opportunity of growing spiritually again and again. Now, at first, we don't really understand that. We just know we're born and we have to deal with this life, and certain things feel familiar, people feel familiar, but we don't really understand the whole concept of it. And I was thinking, just as a reference to myself personally, I was drawn to be born in Los Angeles in 1946. And after I was on this path for a while, I thought, wait a minute, 1946, that was the year the autobiography was published, that Yogananda finished it and brought it out. And also, I lived in Los Angeles, not very far from where Yogananda lived. And he was alive the first about 5.5 years of my life. I never met him. My parents were not spiritual, but I thought maybe it was karma and reincarnation that brought me into that lifetime at that point. And once I came on this path, I just was more aware of that. So there's that part, but that reincarnation part, if you really wonder, why am I here? Why do I have these parents? Why do I have this situation in my life? Why can't I do this and that? The reincarnation part, it helps a lot to know that we choose. Either we choose consciously our next lifetime, or we're drawn back by our karma. And it's not random. You know, again, if people want to make fun of it, these concepts, or want to just not really know about them, then they treat it lightly. But everything is about karma and reincarnation, and their laws. The law of karma is reflected on the physical plane. It's a law of action and reaction. And for every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. So for every action we do, again, an equal and opposite reaction. And so that law of karma is also very, very important to start to understand and flow with. Sri Yukteswar said that you really, and I'm just paraphrasing, that you really cannot grow spiritually until you accept the inevitability of the law of karma, because we have to deal with it. And but that part of reincarnation also brings us, and again, what I was leading to there was that it brings us to a place of relaxation, because otherwise we can constantly in a lifetime be saying, well, why is this happening to me? Why is that happening to me? Why can't I be like someone else, you know, and have their good or bad karma, whatever. But that we chose it, and we're here for a purpose. And that purpose, in the deepest way, and for all of you here that have come today, that purpose is to grow spiritually, to really become more and more aware in our consciousness. And so it helps, in my mind, I thought it really helps to relax with the fact that we're here and what our circumstances are. And that can help us to be much more aware about then what can we do with what we have to work with, what can we do with that? And so that part, I think, is important to just come to terms with. And the teachings that Yogananda brought, the teachings of self-realization, they are very, very clear about these topics. So it's something that we can learn about and incorporate into our lives and our understanding. The law of karma is a little daunting in a way, because when you tune into it, and as Sri Yukteswar said, it is infallible. It is a law, and it does guide everything. And so you think about millions of lifetimes and all the actions that we've done, and that they're all recorded. They're all there in the subconscious. And so with that, we want to begin to be very careful, and not in a nervous way, but very careful about what we think and what we do. Yogananda, when he was first in America, in Boston, with Dr. Lewis, who was his first disciple, really, first Kriya Yogi in America, they were walking down the street one day, and Dr. Lewis was really looking at this nice new car that was in one of the windows there, and Yogananda said to him, "Remember, doctor, be careful of your desires. You don't want to, in other words, you don't want to have to come back to buy that car. Be very careful in what you do." And so we have that, again, I'm doing this because it's a growing, a developing, and a directional understanding of these things. And so as we tune into that, then we can start to really arrange our lives in a way that supports our spiritual growth. Now, both good and bad karma need to be eventually resolved completely. That's called shunya, the zero. The balance of both are necessary to be free completely. But in the meantime, what we want to do is to be adding to the good karma, the karma, in other words, that's taking us in a direction of light, in a direction of spirituality, in a direction of deep understanding of ourselves as a soul. We do this through meditation, we do it through Kriya Yoga, we do it in a number of ways, in our actions outwardly as well. But it's very important, and not to get sidetracked by the daunting part of it. In other words, the overwhelming part of, oh, how many things have I done that are really weighing me down karmically. But it's not how it works. It's interesting, and I won't say too much more after this, but just to know that we really are beings of energy and consciousness. And so when we look at like overwhelming millions of lifetimes, all that karma, good and bad, that we've done, it's gotten us to this point that we're at right now. But now, knowing about this kind of path and self-realization, having gurus possibly, we can move the energy in the right direction. And we just need to do that. We don't need to think about all the other particulars, because it's energy and consciousness. And as you move energy like this, everything follows. Yogananda said to Swami Kriyananda, because Swami was young and learning about the path, and he said, "Can you take away the desire for good food from me?" And Yogananda just laughed and he said, "Don't worry about those little things. When ecstasy comes, everything goes." And that to me means that energy flow. And so we want to really focus on that energy flow, because it will draw into its wake everything. It will resolve all bad karma. When ecstasy comes, everything goes, drawn along in that. And the other thing I wanted to say, because Ashish was saying it's really nice for you to see people who have been on the path, and how have you been on the path for so long, and how did you survive, and all of that. But it's like we're all on the path, all of you here. We're equals in a way, and as Swami Kriyananda would say to us, I've just been doing it a little bit longer. So really think of yourself as on this path strongly, and just move forward very deeply. Really arrange your life around the core of who you are, a soul longing to be one with that divine. and add in the other elements of your life in a way that supports you doing that, supports your meditation, supports your practice of Kriya, supports your spiritual life, and arrange little by little, as you're able to, all of that around that flow of your spiritual life, which is the most important thing that's happening for you.
So since the topic of karma and reincarnation is so vast, it might be your karma that will be here for another 6 hours. Is that your karma? I won't talk that long. But there's a funny, delightful illustration I saw recently of an office manager with his assistant. And the assistant had come in and put a file folder on the manager's desk. And the manager is saying, "But this is gobbledygook. I want it mumbo jumbo." And I don't know if those two words are common for your usage, but they're both words that describe something being unintelligible or incomprehensible. And it's sort of like that for a lot of people with karma. They're just shifting karma horizontally. They're not really coming to the resolution of karma. And that's a challenge for all of us, is that we can play with things, but what's at the heart of it is that we still have our desires and attachments. That's really what we're talking about when we bring the idea of karma into focus. It's the desires and attachments that have come from past lives, but also come from every moment in this life. And we're given the opportunity. It's interesting if you think of karma. Many of us think of karma as the things that are happening that are causing us to have the situations we have in our current life. And that's very valid because there's that momentum of our choices from the past. But karma, understood in another way spiritually, is the gift to each one of us. Because that karma highlights where we need to direct our energy to go past that karma. I remember when we were in Portland, Oregon, as acharyas, as Parvati mentioned, a professor from one of the universities in Portland connected with us and invited me to do a class for their comparative religion on Hinduism. He knew about Ananda, and so he invited me. And I did this a number of years in a row, and it's intriguing with Western academic students what their perception was. It isn't coming to a talk like this, I can tell you. Their minds are very much fixed in a certain way. But prior to one of these classes that I gave, they had shown a documentary film on Hinduism. And it included the part that I saw at the end of the film about karma. And it said that karma could be, as Parvati mentioned, that you could be born the next lifetime as, you know, an insect. And I remember spending the first half of my class saying that's not how it works. You know, it's not by the whim of the divine that something will happen to us. We are souls. We are that spark of omnipresent spirit incarnated with a soul that's allowing us to work out karma so there's no separation from this individualized soul and that omnipresent spirit. Because we're not here just to play life on our own terms. We're here to play life with divine terms. And the challenge for us is to find where that is an uplifting experience, rather than I'm supposed to do this, I need to work out my karma, I better be good. You know, I better be good so I will have good karma. All that means is you've shifted that horizontal thing from gobbledygook to mumbo jumbo. Because good karma is better than negative karma, it's still karma though. And I think for a lot of people, East and West, that's challenging to understand. It's not just about being good. Being good is a very vital, important step, but it isn't what we're here to do. Goodness really comes when we're in that divine experience. But we can use acting in goodness to generate a momentum and a magnetism to feel more of that experience. But karma isn't something we should regret, but rather see it as a springboard, a stepping stone to go past that karma. Because if you're not, you're just adding, if you're regretting your karma, you're adding more karma to your karma. I mean, it's like an endless cycle that just keeps winding up tighter and tighter. And what we want to do is simply release it. Now remember that there's a wonderful quote in the chapter, Years in My Master's Hermitage, in the Autobiography of a Yogi. And I'll just paraphrase the quote from Swami Sri Yukteswar, that he said, "The past lives of all men that everything will improve in the future if you are making spiritual progress now." If nothing else that you remember from this morning's talk, remember that everything will improve from here on out if you place yourself into that flow of energy, that experience of tuning in to grow, then karma will subside. And what happens with that, it has to do with magnetism. You know, a number of years ago, I was in a car accident in America. And it was an unusual set of circumstances what happened. And I remember speaking with Swamiji, I think he might have been in India or in Assisi, Italy. And I talked to him on the phone. And I was just presenting the circumstances, and I said it was kind of shocking to me to have this accident. And no one was injured, it was just the vehicles were damaged. And he said, you know, hearing you say what it's like, it's just some karma that's coming to the surface that will help you. Interesting. Help me? You know, having a car accident. But as I tuned into it afterwards, I thought, of course, that's what it is. It's an opportunity to see what it is that's happening with my energy. You probably remember the story with Yogananda, that one of the young monks in Los Angeles at Mount Washington, that he had a car accident where he was just sitting in the car and somebody sideswiped his car while he was parked. And Yogananda, when he heard about this, mentioned to the monk, you need to be more careful. I mean, he just parked his car. He was sitting in it. He wasn't engaged in interaction with the traffic. But then the next time, he wasn't even in the car and he had an accident. And again, Yoganandaji said to him, as I said, you must be more careful. So it's puzzling on the conscious level, isn't it? It seems like, well, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's not even connected with the physical circumstance of that event. But Yoganandaji was tuning into this deeper level of this man's karma. That this was appearing now because of the energies in his life. And if he were to take this opportunity to turn that around and to lift the energy, then that would be resolved. Because what is karma? Remember, the word comes from Sanskrit, the root of action. Action is that root of it. But it's not that karma is really about action, and people misunderstand this. It's that inner action, that inner awareness with action, that is really the key to karma. Because when we're able to shift the energy, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. If we're just trying to say, like this man who had the 2 accidents that he wasn't really involved with, if he was just going to say, okay, I won't have accidents anymore, it won't have any alteration, any effect on what's happening. Because it's not changing the core of that person's energy. But if we can open up, shift our awareness, and lift the energy, then that's possible. For those of you that are Kriyabans, you know that in the Kriya technique, what we're doing in a sense is drawing the energy in and up that inner spine. And we're drawing and dissolving the seeds of karma, the seeds of our desires, the seeds of our attachments. And we're drawing that energy from that karma and lifting it to go inside and up to the kudista, the spiritual eye, so that we expand into the infinite. It's because we're magnetizing and lifting the energy that creates that dynamic, real experience of transformation. It's no longer something that we hope to have. Now, remember, many of us in this room with our meditations aren't feeling transformed after each meditation, correct? Unless you are. Have you know, no? But normally we don't. We don't feel that experience. But that's only because we're not recognizing it. Isn't that interesting? The truth is, your transformation is taking place whether you recognize it or not. Because those seeds of karma can be subtle. And as they're released, you're coming into your true nature, the soul. But remember, that which recognizes things that we relate to is the conscious mind. Well, the conscious mind is fairly ill-suited, ill-developed to consciously or superconsciously appreciate what's going on. It remains on this certain level and only can perceive and experience things on that level. But when we lift the energy, we're lifting it into the superconscious realm. It is there that we really have that deep intuition. And it's there that we can mitigate or completely dissolve karma. Karma isn't us. It's like a layer of identity. No more than the clothes that you're wearing are you. They're just a reflection of who you are. But who we are in our personalities, in our emotions, in our bodies, in our awareness on the conscious level is simply just layering on top of who we really are. If we can allow ourselves to go to the depth of who we are, as I said, then create that flow magnetically, it's that magnetic flow of energy, of prana, of life force, of consciousness that will take care of that karma. But we can also help this process along, because remember, in every moment, what's happening is that you're either going to incur more karma or you're going to release karma. Which choice do you want to have? You want to release karma. But that's the choice every moment. Every moment in our lives is either we're moving to that pull of karma through desires and attachments, or we're moving to the superconscious experience of being one in the divine. You really don't have the possibility of staying neutral. It just isn't how it's set up. I don't know if you remember old technology. Everything seems to be old the next day compared to the day you have with technology. But remember the days when there were video players? You know, nobody even has DVD players anymore. Everyone's live streaming. But in those old days when you had video players, you know, with the VHS cassette players, it used to be in a lot of them, and the one that we had was that, you know, when you went to take a break in the middle of the movie to make popcorn or go to the restroom, that you'd put it on pause. Well, with the VHS, the video players, that pause wouldn't last long. So the TV would be on, and the pause would go to stop, and you'd have this white noise from the TV, because there wasn't engagement with the player anymore. It's like that in our lives, is that when we think we can pause and just say, okay, this will pass, that may be fine for, as you know, just like in that video player, it lasts a short time and it's okay. But any longer time, it defaults to just chaos. And in our lives, if we can remember that there are times when pauses need to happen. You know, the divine has given us sleep to really give us a pause in life. As Yogananda ji said, that sleep was a pseudo-samadhi. But it gives us a glimpse of that. But what we want to do is come into the direct experience of that, not in a pseudo way. We want to really find that we can be in the experience of the divine touch all the time. And so each day, each moment, feel what's happening. You know, this is what the term mindfulness is about. That in the Yoga Sutras, Parvati and I will be giving a workshop on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras up in Delhi, at Ananda, Delhi, next Saturday. But in... Oh, 2 Saturdays. If you come next Saturday, we'll be in Babaji's Bliss at Babaji's Cave. So, but in 2 weeks' time. But there's this word that's very subtle in its understanding in the Yoga Sutras called Smriti. And Smriti has various meanings as Patanjali reveals it in terms of the exploration of the soul call. Well, one of the meanings is mindfulness, that it's that emphasis of being aware consciously in each moment. That we're not just drifting off into daydreaming, the subconscious, or just going along with the program that the subconscious has put in motion for us. That, because often people are really not there in the moment. A number of years ago, I heard this interview with this doctor who had done research on the sense of taste. It's a very, very revealing study. And he said by the second time, for sure the third time, that you eat a food that you really, really like, or a food you really, really don't like, it's almost entirely by memory. You know, the word vicarious, we don't use that word a whole lot anymore in our language, but vicarious means in association with. And so he was saying, people are living vicariously through one of the strongest senses of taste. Isn't that strikingly amazing? Because it's created such a channel, a passage in the brain networking, that we go to that rather than the experience. Well, what they found is that meditation brings us back to the moment, to the experience. Isn't that lucky for us? Then we can again experience what it is directly. And that's what life is about, because it's moving past the pull of karma into the experience of what is. But the other part of that, obviously, is that we don't want to become attached to the experience. So many people, you know, they taste something and they really think, oh, I love this, rather than just being inside and saying, I am this. You know, that difference is there. Because we tend to, in duality, be on the outside looking in. And karma will just increase. But if we come from the inside and then express that outwardly, then we're not touched by the things that happen. We're not touched by the pulls of our emotion or our desires, because we're centered within. Remember that wonderful phrase of Master, of Yogananda ji, center everywhere, circumference nowhere. That is how we resolve the pull of karma. And reincarnation is, as Parvati touched on briefly, is a way to understand that we will have endless opportunities, but why not take advantage of it now? I remember with my mother, who in her own way was spiritual, she was a Christian, but she and I would have these amazing conversations. And I would ask her questions, not to test her, but just to engage in a conversation. So I asked her one time, a few years before she passed away, so what happens after death? It was a very intriguing question for her. And she said, honestly, I don't know. I know what I've learned in church, but I really don't know. Isn't that interesting? But isn't the same for us? I mean, I think a lot of us trust that reincarnation is what's going to happen. We hear the great masters, the teachings of yoga, we hear our own guru expressing that, of course, it is that infallible law of reality. But you and I may not directly know that. But does that matter? It matters if you're dogmatic about just believing it. Then that's not so good. But if you can use, just as a scientist does, the idea of a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is holding up a projection of what could be possible, but isn't entirely known. And reincarnation is an amazing way to approach this with, that as an approach to life, as you experiment with accepting reincarnation, not accepting it as dogma, as I said, but accepting it as, this is an interesting experiment. As we orient from that filter of understanding reincarnation, the thing that it does, it allows us to have compassion for ourselves, but for other people. We understand that people are dealing with their own karma, and that in each lifetime it's an opportunity to release that karma. But it does give us this possibility that we're not just rigid and stuck in this lifetime and good luck with it. The Divine has given us infinite lifetimes, but we start to realize through two things: suffering and monotony. Let me get on with this. Let me really find what life is about, directly, in the highest way. So karma and reincarnation starts to weave this possibility that it isn't just saying, oh, it's my karma, I can't do anything about it. That isn't, of course, helpful. If we can understand, this is my karma, what can I do about it? What can I open up to have the Divine flow through me more in a dynamic way? How can I approach my life in seeing the world around me always as possibilities, not problems, but always as possibilities? Lifting the energy around us. We know this from meditation, that as we meditate, we create an aura that stretches out to the world around us. And we start to touch people in ways that they may not recognize consciously. Remember, the conscious mind isn't always the best vehicle, instrument, to gauge what's going on. So when we do healing prayers, we're, for ourselves, lifting the energy to be free. And then we're sharing that with others. We're helping them whether they cognize that readily or not. We're creating an environment that has possibility. Isn't that a wonderful way to live every moment? So we encourage you to really take to heart that we can live this way in a very rich way and in a meaningful way that not only touches ourselves, but touches the world around us. So blessings to you.